Without inventions, we'd have nothing, because nothing would have been invented. And over the last 300 or so thousand years that humans have existed for, we have invented some truly life-changing things. Things such as the iPad, chocolate, the wheel, complex systems that improved agriculture and manufacturing, cheese, glasses, you name it. But when you look at some of the greatest inventions in the history of the universe, like the car, the iPhone, the internet, chocolate milk, or macaroni, there's one country that seems to be missing from the credits section of Wikipedia. And that, of course, is Australia. And that makes sense, because a lot of us either can't be f***ed or are too busy doing things like fighting kangaroos. But then I decided to do some further research, and surprisingly, I found out that us Australians have actually been rather productive. So in today's video, I'll be going through some of Australia's greatest inventions, some of which are known all around the world and used every day, some of which you may have never heard of, and some of which are exclusive to Australia and the rest of the world misses out on. Anyway, that's enough waffle for now, let's get into it. And first up, we'll start off with the most important one by far, Wi-Fi. In the early 1990s, a team of scientists at Australia's CSIRO, which stands for something, decided that running cables everywhere just to connect to the internet was so late 1980s. In the early 1990s, O'Sullivan led a team at the CSIRO which patented in 1996 the use of a relation technique for reducing multipath interference of radio signals transmitted for computer networking. And then roughly 30 years later, Yorak Hunt, used my home Wi-Fi to search up his Wikipedia page, completely plagiarized this paragraph here for my video, and then millions of people used their home Wi-Fi to click on that video, like and subscribe to my channel. It's just crazy how things work. But in all seriousness, Wi-Fi was a major step forward for the internet, and billions of people use it every day. Without Wi-Fi, you would have to plug your iPad into the wall just to play a game of Fortnite Mobile. But luckily, Australia was there to save the day. Anyway, that's enough about Wi-Fi, now it's time to get into our next one. Now, we won't spend too much time on this one because it's not as interesting as the name suggests, and that is the Stump Jump Plow. Now, when I first heard of this, I thought it was the Stunt Jump Plow, and I couldn't be more proud of the fact that in Australia, we figured out how to do stunt jumps with a plow. But after I realised it was just a piece of farming equipment, my interest slowly tapered off. But hey, it is still pretty important. And if any of you guys out there have a stunt jump plow, let me know in the comments. Anyway, next up we have the black box. Now, my favourite part of the black box has to be the name, because it's comprised of two words that mean two very distinct things. Black is a colour and box is a shape. So of course, naturally, the black box is orange and cylindrical. Anyway, the black box has two main functions. The first one being to record audio and voice recordings of the cockpit of an aeroplane, and then the second function is the flight data recorder, which records airspeed, altitude, engine performance, and many other things that I don't need to bother mentioning. Now, the black box was invented by Dr. David Warren in the 1950s, who was an Australian man. And a not so fun fact is that his father died in one of Australia's first civilian air crashes in 1934, which gives us a little bit of background as to why he wanted to invent it in the first place. Now, of course, the black box was such an important piece of equipment. Since 1963, the black box has been mandated in all jet-powered aircraft in Australia, and then America followed suit in 1967, and basically the rest of the world followed suit in the 1970s. And as somewhat of a pilot myself, I love the idea of a black box, because unfortunately when there's an aircraft accident, there's not really too many witnesses left to recount what happened. But unfortunately, it seems that the black box has a little bit of a flaw. You see, to get the data off the black box, you need to have the black box itself. So if the plane's at the bottom of the ocean, or you just simply don't know where it is, there's no way to get the data off the black box. And there's even stories of the black box just completely disappearing, like on 9/11, which I still can't figure out who to put the blame on, George Bush or Porsche. But anyway, now this next one was actually quite a shock to me, and I had no idea that us Australians invented it, and that of course is the electric drill. Now, we've all heard of UK drill, but electric drill is completely different. The electric drill was invented by two Australian men from Melbourne, William Blanche Brain, who was the brains behind the operation, and Arthur James Arnott, who we assume brought the biscuits. And on the 20th of August in 1889, they filed the first patent for the electric drill, which was designed for rock drilling in mining and construction. And this is what the first electric drill actually looked like. And since then, there's been millions of different types of drills. Impact drivers, the hammer drill, the core drill, UK drill, American drill, Australian drill, army drills, the drill sergeant, and of course the cordless drill. And I think that it's pretty cool that two guys from my home city invented one of the greatest power tools of all time. And junkies all around the world want to thank them as well for giving them something to steal to cash in for money at cash converters for meth. Anyway, next up we have one of Australia's most important inventions of all time, and that of course is the goon bag. The patent for the goon bag was submitted in 1965 by the Australian winemaker Thomas Angove. He was inspired by ancient water skins and wanted to bring this ancient technology into the modern era by ditching the sheep and goat skins of the past and replacing them with polyethylene and replacing the water from the inside with cheap shitty wine, helping people from all over the country and eventually all over the world get pissed in the park for much cheaper and much more conveniently. But you see, the goon bag isn't just a one-trick pony. Once you've drank all the wine out of the bag, you can refill it up with air and use it as a pillow when you eventually pass out. And unlike the bottle, due to the unique design, you can hang it from a clothesline and play the infamous game Goon of Fortune. The goon bag can also be used as a birthday balloon, hot air balloon, and some companies even fill them up with water. But unfortunately, recently, the word goon has taken on a completely different meaning. So when I did the research for this video, some of the results I got were quite intriguing. Anyway, next up of course, we've got to get into the greatest invention in the history of the entire universe, and that of course is the Ford AU Falcon. The universe is estimated to be 13.8 billion years old, and Ford took 13.7 billion years to make the Ford AU Falcon. And since they had all that time to get it right, when they finally released it, boy did it pay off. Not only was it one of the greatest looking cars in the history of the universe, it was also more aerodynamic than the Bugatti EB110, which had a top speed of 351 kilometers per hour. Now unfortunately, the AU Falcon had to be speed limited to 180 k's an hour because in 1997 when they came out, they hadn't invented a tyre that could handle the G-force of the wheels spinning. There was just that much torque, and the AU Falcon won every single race that it entered, besides all the ones that it didn't win. The AU Falcon was available in sedan, ute, wagon and convertible forms, and it was so good that Ford basically reused it for the rest of the Falcon lifespan. If you look at the B-Series Falcon, the doors, windows and many other features are completely interchangeable, meaning all they really had to do was update the look and make the new Falcon design a little bit less aggressive so it was less of a sports car and more of a family car, and they sold billions of these. But unfortunately for the rest of the world, the AU Falcon was only really sold in Australia and New Zealand. But the UK did get some of them in hearse form, and here's one of them dominating on the track. Rumour has it, people are dying to get a ride in it, and I don't blame them. Anyway, that's enough about the Ford AU Falcon. It's been mentioned on this channel a million times, and will be mentioned on this channel a million times more, so let's move on. Now back in the day, toilets used to use a lot of water, which was good if you were squeezing out big turds. But the problem with that is that if you did a phantom poo, or just a little one, or even just a number one, you used a lot of water for not much excretion. And the problem was, back in the day, and even to this day, Australia is a very drought-prone country, which means that saving water is very important. Hence the phrase, if it's yellow, let it mellow. But luckily, in 1980, Australian inventor Bruce Thompson, which by the way is possibly the most Australian name I've ever heard, came up with an idea while working for the company Caroma, which does toilets. Now Bruce had a brilliant idea. He decided to add another button to the top of the toilet. No, not a Bluetooth button, but another flush button. Except this one, when pressed, only emptied half the tank, 5.5 litres, compared to the usual 11 litres. Now while this idea is simple, it was very effective, and the government even stepped in to help fund the project itself. And they put it into a trial in a small South Australian town, where obviously it was very successful. And shortly after, legislation was passed in most Australian states that made these mandatory. And as the years went on, Caroma continued to refine their invention, eventually bringing the capacity down to 6 and 3 litres respectively. Now before we get into our last one, we do have some honourable mentions. First off, we have the Notepad. No, not this one, but this one. This version of the Notepad was invented in Tasmania in 1902 when this man, J.A. Birchall, glued together a stack of halved pieces of paper supported by a piece of cardboard, and boom, the Notepad was born. Then of course we've got the rotary clothesline, aka the Hills hoist, which is a requirement in the game of Goon of Fortune, and this was first patented by Gilbert Toyne in 1911 in Adelaide. Then of course, stainless steel braces were also invented in 1956 by Percy Raymond Begg and Arthur Wilcock. Then of course we have the CSIRO again with the 30-day long wear contact lenses, the baby safe capsule, and the saltwater pool chlorination system. And while these are all very useful inventions and very cool that they came from Australia, one of the most innovative Australian inventions that we had was the mechanical ice maker. Invented by the Scottish-born James Harrison, he designed and built the first mechanical ice maker in Geelong, Victoria, where usually they make a different type of ice, replacing the old Eskimo technique of just finding ice and hoping that it doesn't melt. Now, while technically he didn't invent the first machine to make ice cubes, he's basically the person that invented modern-day refrigeration. And in 1873, he won a gold medal by proving that meat can still be edible after being frozen for months. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you enjoyed this one, you might enjoy some of these too.